Welcome again. Now let's begin with updates on the state of emergency declared in Rivers State. The federal government says Rivers State allocation will be released to the new administrator Ibokete Ibas. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi announced this while briefing State House correspondents at Presidential Villa in Abuja. The development comes after President Bola Tinubu imposed emergency rule in Rivers State on Tuesday. The Supreme Court had on February 28th upheld the Federal High Court ruling that prohibited the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General of the Federation from disbursing statutory monthly allocations to Rivers State. The Supreme Court also directed the Martin Samaola-led faction of the Rivers State House of Assembly, which is aligned with FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, to resume legislative sittings. And in the meantime, the Rivers State government has expressed surprise at the state of emergency declared by President Bola Tinubu, emphasizing that the state was being properly governed under Governor Siminalayi Fubara's leadership. Warisinibo Johnson, the state's commissioner for information, stated that despite political disagreements, the state continued to thrive with good governance, timely payments of salaries, and ongoing development projects. He stressed that Rivers State remains safe, secure, and peaceful. Johnson also questioned why Tinubu suspended Fubara for not performing, or rather for not the former Governor Nyesom Wike, who is now the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. The commissioner suggested that the political crisis were largely exacerbated by the action of the House of Assembly, led by Wike, undermining efforts for peace and progress. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party has rejected the imposition of state of emergency in Rivers State, calling it part of a larger plot to establish a one-party totalitarian regime. They argue it was an attempt to silence opposition and impose control over the nation. According to the 1999 Constitution, the President's declaration of emergency lacked the necessary approval from the National Assembly. Section 305, subsection 2, clearly required him to transmit the proclamation to both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, who must convene a meeting to decide whether to approve it. The PDP emphasized that the move was unconstitutional and dangerous for Nigeria's democracy. Now let's also tell you that the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has criticized President Bola Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, calling it an unconstitutional and reckless move. Obi urged the National Assembly to intervene by withholding legislative support for what he described as an abuse of executive power. In a tweet on his X handle on Wednesday, Obi criticized the president's decision and the subsequent suspension of the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, warning that such actions could foster a dangerous culture of impunity and weaken Nigeria's democracy. According to him, the unilateral decision of President Bola Tinubu to remove Governor Siminalayi Fubara from office is not only unconstitutional and reckless, but also a clear attempt to tighten his grip on power at all costs. Still on Rivers' political situation, the Nigerian Bar Association has joined the list of groups frowning at the suspension of the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, his deputy. Now, in a statement posted on his X page, Afam Osigwe, a senior advocate of Nigeria and the president of the NBA, argued that while Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution grants the president authority to declare a state of emergency, it establishes strict conditions and procedural safeguards to protect democratic governance and fundamental rights. The NBA emphasized that the Constitution does not grant the president power to unilaterally remove elected officials under the guise of a state of emergency. According to the NBA, Section 188 of the Constitution specified the process for the removal of a governor and deputy governor, while the removal of House of Assembly members must adhere to constitutional and electoral guidelines. In the meantime, the Nigerian Army has warned that it's on high alert following the emergency rule imposed on Rivers State. Minister of State for Defense Bello Matawalle made the disclosure in a statement released on Wednesday. Matawalle said the nation's defense institutions strongly support President Bola Tinubu's declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. Matawalle stated that the declaration is a necessary measure to address the ongoing political crisis, which has hindered the delivery of democratic governance and the welfare of the people of Rivers State. He called on all political actors involved in the crisis to adhere to the President's declaration and work collaboratively towards a peaceful resolution. Still on Rivers State crisis, the Trans-Niger pipeline in Ogoniland, Rivers State, was hit by an explosion just 2 weeks after some groups threatened to blow up oil pipelines if there were any impeachment attempts on the governor of Rivers State. Locals claim that the blast was an act of sabotage, fueling speculation that the earlier threat has been carried out. Our News Central's correspondent Biola Festus visited the scene of the explosion. Now, I'm being told I will bring that package later, so do stay tuned. However, to discuss the latest development in Rivers State, we are joined by immediate past spokesperson for the Coalition of Rivers State Civil Society Organizations, Solomon Lenu, a legal practitioner, Evan Sufeli, and a public affairs analyst, Francis Chilaka. You're welcome. First off, Mr. Solomon, let's get to you. If you're there with me, I'm going to go right ahead and ask, did you see this coming?
Well, I'll be very hypocritical if I say that I didn't see this coming, because for those of us who are here in Rivers State and are close watchers, this action had been predicted. In fact, I have even spoken about this particular action, the intent to get a state of emergency declared here in Rivers State on your very station, I think sometime last year. I alluded to that fact, and today it has happened. Unfortunately, what is happening, here today in Rivers State is a situation that can be likened to the adage that says that you give a dog a bad name to kill it. That is what is happening here, and it's unfortunate because a whole lot of lies has been told, a lot of misinformation has been churned out. In fact, I even feel pity for the president, because I'm sure that had he been properly informed about the true state of things, his decision may have been different if he is not in league, with those who are bent on making sure that Rivers State is in the situation that she is right now. And I'm going to tell you straightforward, the people of Rivers State are not happy, because for the first time since the last administration, Rivers people got some kind of respite, having a government which they can actually call their own, a government that they can relate to, a government that actually, has a mantra that says it is the people's first. But unfortunately, soon after this government came into being, a whole lot of crises have been happening. I listened to the declaration of state of emergency by the president, and my heart, bled. I also listened to the AGF this afternoon, and I'm left to wonder, where are these people actually getting their own information from? Don't they have people that give them the right information about the situation of things? Because if you listen to the president said that when he tried to intervene, of course, the parties involved did not heed to his advice, and also again the Supreme Court judgments that the governor blatantly ignored the orders of the court. And then you begin to wonder, because if you look at the Supreme Court judgments, no matter how vexatious it was, the governor immediately, in less than 24 hours, implemented the first part of the judgment, which was at his disposal at the time, by ordering the local government chairman to step aside. He did that immediately, even before the CTC came out. And he didn't stop there. Even went ahead and has been making attempts to represent the budget, which was one of the crux of the issues, and we all saw how the Martins and Megule Assembly tried to evade that particular budget presentation. The governor tried, he wrote the first letter, they rejected it, that it was through the secretary. The governor had to write twice again by himself. Still, they rejected and rebuffed him, only to go and lie to Nigerians and, brought the state of emergency. And then again, there's this issue that is trending, that there was a pipeline explosion, in Goni area, and it is because of that the president declared a state of emergency. Well, if that is what the state of emergency was hinged upon, then the government of Nigeria have been properly deceived, because I can tell you, aside from being a critical stakeholder here in Rivers State, I am also from Okoni. And I went there yesterday, the moment the information came in the morning. I went there to take a look at the place. And I can tell you that what they are calling explosion today, it's quite unfortunate, because there is nothing like explosion. It is just, a well orchestrated, sabotage that was carried out by people who want to paint this the governor of Rivers State black, so that
All right,
they can
Mr.
achieve
Solomon,
their aim. And I can tell you that incident not also happened on the Niger Delta pipeline. That's not correct.
All right,
the Niger pipeline, we can tell you, for you to even puncture or cause any sabotage to that pipeline, you have to be well.
Mr. Solomon Lenu, I'm going to let you finish, but I also want to welcome Francis Chilaka, our public affairs analyst, here with us as well. I want to get his take on the situation in Rivers State as well. Now, Mr. Chilaka, do you think that this was the right way to go by the Nigerian president, declare a state of emergency?
I will start by, I think 3 weeks back or so, this channel, I also said it that I foresee a state of emergency being declared because I've been following everything going on in Rivers State, and I will say that the president and the minister of FCT would leave no stone unturned in their bid to capture the state. So when the State House of Assembly, served the notice of impeachment, and it became obvious to all the parties involved that it was not going to fly as easily as they had planned, because if you look at that notice, they served a notice on the governor, they served a notice on the deputy governor, which means that the speaker was eyeing the governorship, and that would have, led the state into a state of anarchy and chaos. So I knew that it was going to happen. I knew that was going to be the last resort. But then, looking at it again, I do not think it's the right decision to have been taken. And the president in his broadcast, if I'm right, kept emphasizing on the fact that Fubara did not do this. Fubara did not do this. But the president failed to point to the fact that there is somebody behind the mask that was causing all this problem in Rivers State, and that is the FCT minister. So, in other words, you cannot beat a child and ask the child not to cry. So somebody was beating the drum for the 27 State House of Assembly members. Somebody was beating the drum to ensure that the state does not function. So if there was going to be a punitive measure to be taken, I think what Mr. President would have done first and foremost was to cut, the powers of the FCT minister, to call him to order. But the president did not do that. So for me, I believe that everything that has played out in Rivers State is state capture geared towards the 2027 elections.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chilaka. Mr. Leno, I'm going to come back to you, but I also want to introduce Evan Sufeli, a legal practitioner. He's joining us, and I want to ask him about the legal implications of this. First off, Mr. Sufeli, was this the right move by the president? Does the pipeline vandalism and the situation in Rivers State, did it all amount to a situation where he could actually invoke a state of emergency? Mr. Ofeli.
Well, why does the president have the right to declare a state of emergency? I think that he did it in a way that is not befitting to the laws of our land. The state of emergency declared by the president is like taking a poisonous leaf to a purification feast. He used it in a very crafty way to work against the sitting governor, because there's nowhere in our laws where it is said that the president can depose the governor just like that. There's nowhere. Section 305 that he relied on in the proclamation, which was reduced into the official gazette in compliance with the Constitution, did not in any way suggest impliedly or expressly that the governor should be suspended. The governor have a mandate of the people. The State House of Assembly members, they have a mandate of the people. Okay? So the ways to remove a governor is clearly stated in Section 188 of the Constitution. And the way to dissolve the State House of Assembly is also stated in the Constitution. So to compound this whole thing, I'm listening to the Attorney General. I was listening to the Attorney General of the Federation shortly before this interview. And I'm so disappointed that you have an Attorney General who is defending this illegality. The purpose of a state of emergency is to quell a problem, mutiny, where there's clear and present danger, and there's a dangerous situation that may engulf the nation or that has engulfed a part thereof. A state of emergency is to restore peace. It is curative. It is not supposed to depose anyone. It is supposed to go to the root of the issue and resolve the issue. So the president got it very wrong. And in the proclamation, it clearly was biased. He accused Fubara of demolishing the State House and accused him of several things and said even him have made attempt to solve the problem. The attempt he was referring to is when he called them for that meeting when he was ordering Fubara, like a schoolboy, to go and do all that. And all, that's what he was referring to as a peaceful measure that he tried to.
So, Mr. Ofeli.
And at the end of the day,
so Mr. Ofeli,
Wike, who is the principal member in this crisis, he did not reprimand him in the lawmakers who defected.
Mr. Ofeli, so it's because we have other members I want to still speak with. I need to know what recourse Governor Siminalayi Fubara has now. The plenary has been postponed till tomorrow until we hear from the House whether or not this declaration will go forward. But what does he have as an option for recourse, whether legal, well, especially legal, and as you are a lawyer, do tell us.
Yes. Between now and tomorrow, the National Assembly will decide because they have 2 days. Okay, 10 days if they are on recess, 2 days if they are there. The option open to Fubara is to challenge this in a court of law. I've listened to people say that, no, the Supreme Court was the one who even was against Fubara and the rest of that. See, in a civil society, you cannot go anywhere else. You cannot take the laws into your hands. Okay, 2 wrongs won't make a right. So whether the Supreme Court got it wrong before or now or thereafter, you are still going back to the court because it's the court that will resolve dispute under democracy. Okay, there's no other. You subject it to judicial review. Okay. Judicial review will be that the court will now interpret Section 305. Then look at the conduct of the president, marry it with the law, and make a declaration as to whether the president did the right thing or not. That is judicial review. And the only institution that has the power of judicial review is still the judiciary.
Okay, then.
So this must be challenged in court.
Now, I want to come back to Mr. Francis Chilaka. Now, should the governor challenge this in court, what then for the people of Rivers State regarding what they're going through, a state of non-governance, it would seem, as politicking has taken over for the past since he's been governor? What will happen to the people of Rivers State if this is to perhaps go to court with the governor?
Well, when you talk about Rivers State, I like to talk about Nigeria, broadly speaking about Nigeria. And the political class. Unfortunately and sadly, we have a political class that do not think about the people. So every step taken by the political class is selfish and greedy. It's not about the Nigerian people. It's not about the people of the state. It's about individuals who see themselves as demigods. Obviously, I would support the governor. He needs to challenge it in court. We need to have an interpretation of Section 305 that talks about the removal or the declaration of state of emergency. It needs to be clear on it. And you see, what pains me most in this whole thing is that the Supreme Court in recent times seems to be giving judgments that people no longer understand where they're coming from. The 27 lawmakers of Rivers State, we all know they have decamped, but the Supreme Court insisted that they have not decamped, that they are still members of the PDP. Meanwhile, PDP has come out openly to say, declare these seats vacant. So we need to know, why the Supreme Court has been giving so many conflicting judgments in recent times. If we're saying that the polity is being heated up, I believe that the Supreme Court has its own bit of it in heating up the polity. So the governor should challenge it. But as we know, it's the people that will suffer. Okay. Development and all of that will affect the people. And it is gradually going to affect the dividends of democracy that the people of it are expecting.
Mr. Solomon Lenu, let's come back to you. We know that Rivers State is responsible for most of the revenue when it comes to oil for Nigeria, and most people seem to think that the president was being proactive in declaring a state of emergency to secure this part of the country's earnings. Now, with a state of emergency being declared, and if it is ratified by the Senate, this means a small military situation inside of a democracy. How will this affect oil production inside of Rivers State and for Nigeria, and how would it also affect the people in their everyday lives?
One of the problems that we have as a country today is that we tend to forget, too quickly and too easily. If the presidency had a well thought out, plan to solve the problem of Rivers State with regards to this current crisis, I think a state of emergency at this time would have been the last option, because if you are in Rivers State, you see that the governor has been trying all the best that he can, to make sure that there is peace and people have been going about their duties and their businesses, quite calmly, and there was no reason whatsoever to declare a state of emergency. And why I say we seem not to, remember our past is because if you look at what happened during the Jonathan time, when Jonathan lost the election and then Yar'Adua took over, which brought about this amnesty thing, you see that the activities, in the Niger Delta here actually crippled the economy to a point that Yar'Adua had to come up with that amnesty program. And again, during the Buhari time too, we saw when the Avengers came, and we saw what, became of the economy of Nigeria. This is one of the mainstay of the economy of Nigeria. So when you are dealing with the issue of Rivers State, you have to be very, very, circumspective and do it with tact. Unfortunately, today, our leaders have placed politics above every other consideration, because just like you can see, there's a general consensus around this issue of a state of emergency in Rivers State. Everybody is saying that it's wrong. And beyond just being wrong morally, on the legal aspect of things too, the president has gone ultra vires. He had gone above the recommendations, of the Constitution to act, with his own whims and caprices and all of that. So I think we just have to continue talking the way we are talking and pray that the National Assembly will rise to the occasion and then halt this particular action, because we cannot actually tell how this whole issue will end. It can cascade, downhill and get even worse than it is right now, because if you say that you are trying to protect the economy by putting down the state of emergency, what if, the boys in the creeks, go ahead to start bombing these installations, and then you can no longer produce the oil? Then we'll go back at once again. It will then mean that in trying to solve a problem, you've created more problem than we can actually handle at this very time when we are having a serious economic crunch. So the truth is, everything that has been happening all around this Rivers State crisis and the interventions of the president, the court judgments and all of this things have not come, in good faith. There's clearly, an obvious bias. And one thing they need to also understand is that whatever you do thinking you're doing to the governor of Rivers State today, you're doing it to the people of Rivers State.
All right.
So there are things that people must actually take into cognizance when doing things, so that we can actually have a peaceful country.
Mr. Solomon Lenu, Mr. Solomon Lenu, Mr. Evans Ufeli, and Mr. Francis Shilaka, thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, still on Rivers State, the Trans-Niger pipeline in Ogoniland, Rivers State, was hit by an explosion just 2 weeks after some groups threatened to blow up oil pipelines if there were any impeachment attempts on the governor of Rivers State. Locals claim the blast was an act of sabotage, fueling speculation that the earlier threats has been carried out. News Central's correspondent Biola Festus visited the scene of the explosion.
The explosion occurred in the dead of the night at a section of the Trans-Niger pipeline at the boundary between Bodo and Mogo communities in Rivers State. The Trans-Niger pipeline, which traverses states in the Niger Delta region, is one of Nigeria's biggest channels, conveying crude oil to the Bonny terminal for onward exportation. Locals and surveillance personnel in charge of the pipeline narrate what they know about the explosion.
When I came here, it was fire. You cannot access this place. When I saw the fire, the flames from my own point of residence, I had to run down here. What I heard and saw around here was chattering noise of birds, as well as movements of several human beings in vehicles heading to Port Harcourt.
Personnel of Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, the surveillance agency responsible for managing and maintaining Nigeria's pipeline infrastructure, arrive for an on-the-spot assessment, but their presence gets locals agitated. They are insisting that no external bodies should be allowed to change the narrative about the actual cause of the explosion. They appear convinced that the crude oil pipeline had been sabotaged.
We will not allow anybody outside Bukana or anybody that does not have an understanding about this. I have not been working with Bukana people, you understand, to come and say nonsense here. Bukana youth are already on ground. We cannot say for a fact that it is equipment failure or sabotage, but there are certain facts that are almost evident. But the conclusion of the investigation will justify any of the narrative that seems to be true. When I came in, I saw the fire, and the fire I immediately was able to know it came as a result of sabotage. If you look at this place, there was pressure on the pipe. Upon cutting the pipe and getting to the product, it spilled. This spillage rounded all this place you see up to that point where you see a darkening of the green life.
The area of explosion is situated in a farmland, a few meters away from a densely populated community, making the need for a joint investigative visit urgent and necessary. A close look at the scene of this explosion, a layman can easily tell that the surrounding of the pipeline was dug by shovel. Hence, locals are insisting that this must have been a third-party sabotage. In Ogoniland, for News Central, Biola Festus.
Welcome back. World Consumer Rights Week is globally recognized with support from the United Nations and other international actors. For over 40 years, Consumers International has run the campaign uniting the consumer movement and partners to celebrate together. Consumers International members help to select the campaign topic each year to help mobilize global action on pressing issues impacting consumers. This week's theme is a just transition to sustainable lifestyle. Now, to speak further on this, we're joined by founder and CEO Small Small, Tunde Balogun. Tunde, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us to talk about World Consumer Week.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, indeed. So, in what ways can consumers identify and protect themselves from deceptive AI-generated content and deepfakes?
Okay, I mean, we are in the advent of AI right now. There's a lot of buzz around AI. We can't shy away from it. We can't run away from it. I think we all just have to adapt to AI. A lot of brands, a lot of companies are integrating AI into their solution right now. And for consumer, I think, we have the consumer rights in Nigeria. I mean, the use case for AI in Nigeria is still at its infancy right now, But in other parts of the world, you already see that AI is gaining so much ground. It is use case around different areas. A lot of jobs are being lost as well as a result of AI, which is happening faster in other parts of the world and the developed parts of the world compared to Nigeria. But we are going to feel it heavily, in not too long from now. So for consumers, we believe that the best way they can take advantage of AI is really just the experience of shopping online. There are a lot of platforms right now, e-commerce platform where it takes you longer time to check out and all of that. But with the advent of AI, you can do that faster. Even for vendors that use some of these platforms to promote their products or to sell their products, right? It's easier these days to put your products online with the advent of AI because you don't need to write description, you don't need to upload images. AI can generate all of that for you on the go. And we also do that in our company with our products. So there's so much we can talk about when it comes to AI. But
so much indeed,
in terms
Tunde.
of consumer rights,
so much indeed, Tunde. Now, I'm about to ask whether there are risks to be considered when you are interacting as a person, an individual, with AI-driven services.
There will always be risk, but I don't think right now the risks are that. You see some industry, the risks are higher compared to other industry. Like, for example, the voice activation industry or music industry, whereby you can use AI to generate, somebody's voice to sing a song or to write a song, or rewrite a song. So you see that AI is already heavy in such industry, right? And whether we like it or not, it affects consumer rights. Consumer and then also the originator and the owners of these of these products, right? On the e-commerce or business side of things, right? The risks are not that high right now because AI is still in the developmental phase. So it's still evolving. So we really don't know how far it's going to go. Even the promoters of AI, the companies that are behind AI, with the likes of OpenAI and all of that, right? They are still doing like a test and run on a lot of hypotheses around what AI can do. So right now I don't think there is need to be to be afraid. Let's just watch. Change comes with a lot of fear. Change comes with a lot of risk. But I think we just need to still watch. It's still early. That would be my say to that.
So on the side of businesses, are there ethical considerations that businesses should have in mind when they're utilizing AI in consumer products and services? This is for transparency's sake. Should they be considering any of these issues?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that would make consumer feel comfortable. Once there's transparency in any line of business, I think it's immediately, speak about, the confidence or the comfort the consumer should have about whatever company they are dealing with. And this sometimes can just come in the form of like a disclosure, AI is being used to program or to generate certain things within the product. Let's speak specifically. Let's bring it down to like digital platforms, right? I think AI will be largely used on platforms that are digitally driven, tech driven, and all of that, right? So I think that transparency is very key. Or else people will just feel like, what's really going on, and we might not get to the crux of the bottom of some of the issues that consumer will have over time as AI evolve. So, but like I said, there's still so much evolving right now that we don't really know how far AI is going to go. There's a lot of theories, there's a lot of myths. There's just so much noise about AI right now. It's just like when computer, in the early days of computer coming into the birth of internet, rather, there's also a lot of conspiracy theory around internet and all of that. But see today, everybody uses internet to do just about everything. And yes, there are still risks involved, but there are more good around the internet than bad. And I think that's what is going to happen with AI as well. So right now, it's still early to say, oh, let me watch, this is what I need to protect, this is what I need to watch out. I think by so doing, you might actually be missing out on some of the benefits that AI profiles, whether as a business who is integrating AI into their businesses, or as a consumer who is using a business that integrates AI into their solution.
Well, Tunde, I want to say thank you very much for contributing to the news today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Now in more news, the much-anticipated tax reform bill has passed the third reading in Nigeria's House of Representatives after weeks of rigorous debates and stakeholder engagements. Alongside the tax bills, several other proposed legislation scaled through the third reading as lawmakers addressed issues of urgent national importance. Our correspondent Ibrahim Joseph has more on this.
That is it.
After intense deliberation and public hearings, the Nigeria Tax Bill, Nigeria Revenue Services Bill, Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Fund Bill has scaled third reading in the House of Representatives, marking a significant step towards modernizing Nigeria's tax administration and revenue generation drive.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second.
The passage comes after weeks of stakeholders' engagements, during which concerns were raised about the proposed increase in the value-added tax from 7.5% to 15%, and the reintroduction of inheritance tax, which were later resolved by sustaining the 7.5% VAT rate and removing the clause mandating inheritance tax.
I rise to move that HB 1756, HB 1757, HB 1758, and HB 1759 be read a third time. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Say aye. Those against you say nay. That is it.
Beyond the tax reforms, which now await the Senate concurrence, the House also passed several other proposed legislations addressing pressing national issues, ranging from citizens' empowerment to social welfare.
Honorable colleagues, the ninth order of the day is the third reading of a bill for an act to repeal the Technology Business Incubation Foundation.
Lawmakers equally considered motions of urgent national importance, reinforcing their commitment to tackling critical challenges facing the nation and calling on relevant authorities to act accordingly.
Multiple incidents of tanker crashes and explosion have established Otedola Bridge as a recurring danger zone for motorists and commuters.
Mr. Speaker, the House is concerned that the constant issue of substandard materials has sent numerous lives to their early grave.
With the third reading completed and the bills passed, the next phase will be the concurrence of the Senate and eventually presidential assent, marking a turning point in tax administration in Nigeria's history. In Abuja for News Central, Ibrahim Joseph.
As Nigeria moves closer to the 2027 general elections, the Obedient movement is ramping up efforts to mobilize support and strengthen its grassroots presence. One of its latest initiatives is the inauguration of the Delta State Transition Committee alongside a training workshop aimed at enhancing strategic planning and coordination. News Central's Austin Azu has more.
With a training workshop, the inauguration of the Delta State Transition Committee, coupled with a training workshop, marks a significant step in the movement's political expansion within Delta State and beyond. Held in Asaba, the Delta State capital, the event drew participation from national movement leaders and representatives from all 25 local government areas of the state.
As we go through this workshop, I inaugurate this committee, this Obedient Committee. We're also working to make sure that when the time comes, we are going to work towards joining in whatever rebranding we're going to do to make sure that Peter Obi and Obedience have a platform for 2027 election.
Also chairman.
According to the organizers, the committee's launch is aimed at fortifying the movement's grassroots network, harnessing the energy and enthusiasm of supporters to drive political engagements.
This meeting essentially has to do with the key points of building a formidable political workforce where you are teaching, you are helping people to gain the traction of what is required to be done, speaking about the leadership strata.
So we are hoping that galvanizing the obedient movement across the Nigerian states is the key and is the right direction now. We don't want to wait for next year to start our campaigns. We want to start now.
Some participants believe that the training workshop will equip committee members with key skills in mobilization, communication and community engagement, ensuring the movement's objectives remain on track.
This particular workshop is just to re-energize the members of the obedient movement, especially in Delta State, to build a unifying factor where people will know the ideals and the vision and the mission of the obedient movement.
The dimension regarding Labour Party is work in progress, but what's basically happening is that we are reviewing lessons learned and using those lessons to properly structure and prepare for 2027.
My advice is that we mustn't give up at all. A new Nigeria is still possible. But in as much as people say we should pray, in addition to prayer, we must also do the right thing.
As the political landscape evolves, the obedience movement hopes that initiatives like this will bridge the gap between the leadership and grassroots supporters, fostering a stronger sense of ownership and participation. In Delta for News Central, Austin Azu.
And outside Nigeria, the ongoing conflict between Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has claimed at least 50 lives in Khartoum over the past week, as fighting for control of the capital intensifies. The Khartoum Emergency Response Room reported widespread violence, including abductions, forced displacement, and sexual violence. The humanitarian crisis has worsened, with malnutrition reaching alarming levels. 7 children have died since March. Additionally, famine has been declared in parts of Darfur and the Nuba Mountains. The RSF, led by Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, continues to hold parts of Khartoum while the army makes advance to reclaim territory. The conflict, which has been ongoing since April 2023, has caused tens of thousands of deaths and displaced over 12 million people. Business now, Nigeria and Brazil have signed the commercial phase of the $1.1 billion Green Imperative project, which is expected to transform Nigeria's agriculture sector. The signed agreements intend to boost food production, promoting sustainable, low-carbon farming, and also integrating small-scale farmers into value chains. This is a follow-up on a 2018 Memorandum of Understanding. Ayola Adetiloye, Executive Secretary, Produce Export Development Alliance, was our guest on Business Edge, and he explained the benefit of such partnerships.
Develop our agro-industrial base, right? Where we're seeing features like, local assembly of equipment, of tractors locally, but of course some of the parts might be imported, but it actually assembles that, meaning that more farmers, more food producers can have access to mechanization, and also finance for mechanizations as well. So the launch of the commercial part, really what it just means is that we're going to be seeing some movement on the ground. After all is said and done, this is going to be crucial for trade, not just only to boost like the agricultural economy, but also to to promote trade between both countries, because I know that some of these some of these parts are going to be imported and then assembled in Nigeria. And so we look forward to really, the real implementation of this deal on ground. But from all indication, it's a very historical deal. It has taken almost 7 years to actually, put this deal in place. And we're glad that, it's finally coming in, because trust me, Nigeria, we cannot afford to go another year with the way that our food security architecture has been moving for years, and we cannot afford it at all. So it's very, very timely.
And in sports, the Nigeria Customs Service Women's Volleyball team is stepping up preparations for the 2025 Africa Women's Club Championship. The team has traveled to Benin Republic for a 10-day training tour ahead of the tournament set for the 1st to the 14th of April in Abuja. Sports Secretary Samuel Onikeku praised Comptroller General of Customs Adewale Adeniyi and his team for supporting the tour. He said it's a valuable chance for players to test their readiness against tough opponents from Benin Republic, Ghana and Togo. The 144th International Olympic Committee session is underway in Costa Navarino, Greece, with Thursday's highlight being the election of a new IOC president. 7 candidates are vying to succeed Thomas Bach in what analysts call the most open presidential race in IOC history. The IOC maintains a robust financial position with total assets of $6.1 billion. Algerian boxing champion Ibrahim Khalif is set for her sight on a second gold medal at the Los Angeles Olympic. The Paris Games gold medalist remains unfazed by recent political developments in the USA. When asked about President Trump's executive order barring transgender women from female sports categories, Khalif said she is not transgender and Trump does not intimidate her. Khalif revealed the controversy strengthened her resolve. The IOC has provisionally recognized World Boxing as the sport's new governing body. Boxing appears likely to return for the 2028 Games pending final approval. And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories we brought your way. Federal government is set to release Rivers State allocation to new administrator Ibokete Ibas amid declaration of state of emergency. And reactions have trailed the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State. The NBA, PDP, OB have condemned the action, say it's a breach of the Constitution. And we also told you that RSF clashes with army in Sudan has left 50 dead within 1 week in Khartoum. Now, do remember you can send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screens now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.